Hello, and welcome to our second week on the theme of embracing change for Awakened. The book of Revelation is a little weird. A lot of people don't know quite what to do with the book of Revelation, but I have come to love it. And I really had an eye-opening experience about the book of Revelation in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. For many of us who live in the developed world, that was as close as we have ever gotten to feeling like the world was actually falling apart. And over the course of the year, when my congregation didn't worship in person, I started preaching from the book of Revelation more readily because it took on a bit of a new meaning for me. And I spent a lot of time with the book of Revelation, and it went from being my least favorite book in the Bible to one of my favorites. And it's because I began to really understand that John, who was writing on the island of Patmos, wasn't writing about the end of the world in some apocalyptic future, but he was writing about how he felt like his world was falling apart right then and there. John was living in the midst of Roman persecutions, and Christians were being killed by the Roman Empire. John was exiled on this island, and he had real reason both to fear for his own life and to feel like the world was collapsing around him, like there had been a bit of an apocalypse in his life. And so John writes this book in this incredibly brilliant way. He writes it kind of in what we would describe as kind of a fantasy setting, but he's really talking about the Roman Empire. And the more you learn about symbolism in the ancient world, the more it is clear, and would have been clear to the people to whom John was writing, that John is condemning the actions of the Roman Empire and the ways that they are exploiting his country and the ways that they are killing his people. And it's actually brilliant. I love the book of Revelation because it takes on incredible meaning. It's not surprising that in this context, John was wishing for God to create a new heaven and a new earth. That's his way of saying a different way of being. Whenever his society was falling down around him, why wouldn't he have wanted God to intervene in some way to create something different? A world in which there wasn't this evil empire that was killing his people. And so he dreamed, he envisioned a world in which God would wipe every tear from the eyes of his people. We, of course, can relate to this as well. Wanting a world in which there isn't violence, in which there isn't suffering, in which everyone is treated with dignity and respect, in which we are able to really care for one another, a time when God will wipe every tear from our eyes and there will be a new heaven and a new earth. Jesus talked about this, of course, as well. Jesus said, that new heaven, that new earth, that vision where God will wipe every tear from our eyes, where people are not being oppressed and marginalized, where there isn't suffering caused by other human beings, that place is called the reign of God on earth. The reign of God, where God rules and where we all embrace our identity as children of God with inherent worth and dignity. And Jesus said that reign of God, that vision for the future, is absolutely possible. All we have to do is follow the teachings that Jesus gave us that are about love and compassion and respect and lifting up those who are on the margins and ensuring that everybody has enough. Because it is an enormous lie that there's not enough on this earth for all of us. There is enough. There's enough food, there's enough water, there is enough money, there are sufficient vaccines and medicines. We just have to be less concerned with profit and our own prominence and more concerned with justice for those living on the margins, an equitable share for all, the reign of God on this earth. That change is absolutely possible, and we are called to work for that societally. We are, of course, called to work for that interpersonally, to think about how it is that we relate to people, but we're called to work on that systemically as well. And that's why our faith necessarily informs the way that we view political issues. Because if we really want a world where there's a new heaven and a new earth, where God will wipe every tear from our eyes, then we have to work for it. We have to get involved in the political process and ensure that the laws that are being passed are laws that benefit those who are being oppressed. Change is at the heart of the Christian tradition, because it was change that Jesus talked about, change that created the reign of God on this earth. We've got to start being less afraid of change. And that's why in this section where we're focusing on embracing change, our spiritual practice is to try new things. And so this week, I encourage you, as you're comfortable, or maybe even a little uncomfortable, to try something new. That's it. That's all the parameters. Just to try something new. This is a spiritual practice. A new restaurant that you've wanted to try, some new type of food, a new adventure, speaking to a new person, going to a new place. Just try something new that pushes you out of your comfort zone a little bit, because Christianity, human flourishing, is about getting outside of our comfort zones, because that's the only way that this world is going to experience the type of transformation that Jesus called us to. May it be so. Amen.